Hello dear compatriots. Today, February 27th, and during today's program, we will talk about Nikol Pashinyan's statement in the National Assembly on the normalization of Armenian-Azerbaijani relations. In the context of the peace treaty, we know that the responses from Azerbaijan were received in the 12th edition, received in the context of the peace treaty. We will talk about them. In addition, we will definitely also touch upon. He made a new shocking statement on important international issues. Celebrate Trump or not, on the part of Canada or on the part of Europe. Russia's Vladimir Putin, Ukraine, etc. I think it is very important that we also discuss this in this program, because the new statements are partly repetitive, partly there are also new ones, but in general they form an interesting and new picture, taking into account the fact that today another Russian-American negotiation will be held in Istanbul before the program started. Traditionally, I ask you to like. I just remind you about likes, as well as subscribe if you are not subscribed, so that you have the opportunity to constantly watch our channel. We begin our program and begin it. Nikol Pashinyan's statement in the National Assembly. As I already mentioned, Armenia has received the 12th edition of the Armenian-Azerbaijani peace treaty in that text, and this Nikol Pashinyan's response. No solutions are given for those 2 points, that is, there is still no solution for those 2 important points. But this Nikol Pashinyan, since the negotiations are continuing and Azerbaijan has responded with the 12th edition, then the negotiation process has not reached a deadlock. This is very important to clearly state, and in addition to them, he reminded that the father of the issue of border delimitation. The meetings are continuing. The last meeting was by video conference, and that process is also continuing. He also noted that there are no reasons, prerequisites, or justifications for starting a war in the region, and said that his assessment, which is very clear. What this means is that this statement does not mean that there cannot be a war and there will not be a war. Pashinyan simply says that there are reasons. There are no prerequisites or justifications for Azerbaijan to start that war. But I think this is also a very clear statement that Armenia itself does not give any reason for Azerbaijan to start a war against Armenia, and there is no reason for that at all. But naturally, we understand that everything is possible. Let's also remember Ararat Mirzoyan just 2 days ago, the statement in Switzerland and the statement by the Armenian foreign minister. In this regard, I think, are very clear. That is, if there is no reason and prerequisite for all of that, naturally the probability is very low, but nevertheless, the probability of it is and exists, because we do not know what decision will be made in any case. But the same time, in my opinion, is also now. The probability of war is much smaller than 1 year ago, 2 years ago, and so on. Pashinyan also said that they made proposals to Azerbaijan, and in his opinion those proposals would be acceptable to both the Armenian side and the Azerbaijani side, the Azerbaijani people and the Armenian people, but he did not elaborate on which proposals he was talking about, not wanting to talk about those proposals at the moment. But he mentioned one important and interesting thing. There is also a proposal regarding the railways, so that the railways can operate and transport communications are unblocked. And Armenia is also waiting for Azerbaijan's response on this matter. Overall, what can we note from this statement? What can we understand about the current situation of the negotiation process? Those 2 points have not yet been resolved. There has been no agreement on those 2 points, and as we know and remember, one relates to the European observation mission. The proposal is that in areas where delimitation and demarcation of borders have taken place, mainly delimitation, representatives of the European Union observation mission can be removed from there. We also remember the statement from the head of the mission regarding the fact that the Armenian leadership has requested that the observation mission be positioned a bit further away from the line where delimitation has occurred between Armenia and Azerbaijan, but this does not mean that the European Union observation mission, it should not be approached like that. There, it can be at a short distance. Enter the nearby villages, talk, understand the situation and the terrain. From there too, we can clearly conclude that even if delimitation and demarcation take place along the entire border, the representatives of the EU observation mission can step back a little, but work in the nearby villages and settlements far from the nearest border and capture the general situation and general mood. However, as I already mentioned, there is no agreement on this issue with the Azerbaijani side. The Azerbaijani side simply demands that the EU observation mission be removed. We know that the presence of the European Union observation mission has been extended for another 2 years, which is of course very good. It is very important for the Armenian side and for the region as a whole, as it has become one of the key mechanisms for ensuring peace. The second point, as far as we know, relates to the mutual withdrawal from international claims. I have here, most likely, that there has been no mutual understanding, and this issue remains uncertain. There has been no mutual understanding, and this issue remains uncertain. The transportation communication issue also exists, and this is another important topic for discussion. From all this, we can also conclude that the negotiation process has not reached a deadlock, as it seems that Azerbaijan does not currently see the need for this process to hit a dead end. Of course, it's great that this process continues in any case, and if possible. In a world, whatever the political situation, I think it will be possible to make progress, but let's see how events will develop. I am almost sure that all this is also connected with the processes taking place in the world. What is happening in the world now, I do not think creates a favorable situation for Azerbaijan to start a new war against Armenia. So in this regard, let me repeat my opinion and conviction. At the moment, I really do not see anything. There are no preconditions or reasons for a war to resume between Azerbaijan and Armenia. However, as we can see, the political situation is changing very rapidly. Everything is variable, and of course, we don't know what the situation will be tomorrow, and that is why the Republic of Armenia must make every effort to enhance its defense capabilities. That's the best guarantee that there won't be a war, no matter how geopolitical conditions change. If the Republic of Armenia is adequately defended, naturally, no one will dare to launch an attack on the Republic of Armenia. Now let's move on to an important international event. As I mentioned, today there will be a meeting in Istanbul between the American and Russian sides. For 2 days, now he has been trying to reach the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Various statements were being made from there. In addition to that, there are several statements. You have a series of statements. The President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, made a statement that changes the rules of the game in general. That is, this statement is a continuation of the statements that we already heard about a week or 10 days ago from the saddle regarding Ukraine, which generally expressed positive hopes. They do not inspire confidence for either Ukraine or Europe, but at the same time, they provide a great opportunity for transformation and for the European security system. According to Trump, Zelensky will now visit the United States, and a document will be signed between the United States and Ukraine regarding the 1008 metals. There are significant changes in that document, and according to those changes, a general fund will be established, and Ukraine will also benefit from it. 50% will be allocated to that fund. The general fund, as I understand it, will be an American and Ukrainian fund which will also help in the future to restore Ukraine, and it will also be a gift for future generations, so that Ukraine has the opportunity to recover after the war. In addition, Trump, while talking about guarantees, says that some of it is self-evident. It's a very good guarantee because the American presence is naturally very important and in itself is a guarantee for Ukraine that no one has attacked Ukraine. And, by the way, we should also think in that direction regarding Syunik, so that there would be some kind of American presence in Syunik, whether in terms of rare metals or maybe other issues. We could attract the Americans, but if the American flag is raised in Syunik, if there is some company there, it would certainly significantly enhance Armenia's security. In other words, I already mentioned Trump's words that this automatically implies guarantees for Ukraine, because no one would dare to attack Ukraine with the United States present in that region. They have started exporting rare metals, but mainly it's a basic statement. This can also be considered positive. Trump's positive statements are coming to an end, and more unpleasant statements are starting, especially for foreign Nazis and Europeans. Trump says that the United States is not planning to make many promises regarding security for Ukraine. And that's it. Basically, what is there? We have already mentioned, meaning there is a specific point that is most likely it won't be in that document. And as far as I'm aware, that document won't even be signed at the level of presidents or prime ministers and the Secretary of State, but at a lower level. Let's see. It will be very interesting to follow what kind of document it is. In the end, it will be signed as soon as it is already being talked about what kind of document it is. It's about security in Ukraine. Trump also said that they plan to believe it in Europe. They are planning to give Ukraine security to Europe and are ready to help in that regard so that the overall process goes smoothly. Perhaps they mean that Russia, during the negotiations, agreed that the shock absorber for security would be Europe. And in this way, the United States is saying that they support Europe and Ukraine in this matter. Trump also touched on the possible membership of Ukraine in NATO, and clearly ruled out that Ukraine would not become a member of NATO. He ruled out that idea, saying that the very conflict, that war began because Ukraine wanted to become a member of NATO, and that is the reason why Ukraine cannot actually become a member of NATO, and it is because of this problem that the Russian-Ukrainian war began. He also spoke about the fact that he is in favor of having the opportunity to export rare metals from Russia. We remember Vladimir Putin also talked about it, made suggestions, celebrate Trump, how to export it from the very territory of Greece, even invest $15,000 from the occupied territories of Ukraine, and there promises a greater opportunity to celebrate Trump, Russia, saying that celebrate Trump. He is a businessman, and the main hint is that they can also negotiate on this issue, so that in those regions, including the occupied Ukrainian territories, the United States and Russia together can gain much greater privileges to export special rare metals. I don't know if the American side will agree to all of this or not. I can't really go from nothing to celebrating smoothly. During Trump's tenure, we hear all kinds of statements, but it's very clear why the president of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, is doing this, and let's see how the momentum will react to all of that. As for Russia, he said that it's a wonderful idea to export rare metals from Russian territory, and he supports that idea. Trump also stated that the president of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, is very smart. He is a personality, and at the same time he also announced that he will impose 25% tariffs on European Union goods, which he had already promised, from Europe. They responded that they had also acted in a similar way towards the United States of America. By the way, It is very important to note here that Kaja Kallas had visited the United States of America to meet with the Secretary of State of the United States of America. I've postponed the meeting with Marco Rubio indefinitely. One could even say that I've cancelled that meeting, and the meeting between Kaja Kallas and Marco Rubio will not take place. Instead, Kaja Kallas is holding meetings in the Senate and will not actually have the opportunity to meet with the Secretary of State of the United States, which also shows how tense and complicated the relations are now. The tariffs imposed between the European Union and the United States could complicate the situation for Europe even more. Let's see. I am not an economist, and I can't say what the consequences will be for the European economy, but one thing is certain: Europe will start spending a lot more money on Ukraine and spend much more money on its own defense. And in addition to that, this new border, the tariffs are also a very serious and big obstacle for Europe to the next announcement of the saddle. That statement is simply surprising in its wording. It says that the European Union was created to deceive the current United States of America. From the United States of America, that was their goal, which they were very good at. And they say that now I am the President of the United States of America, and all that will not work. That is, to be clear here, there are clear accusations here. Regarding the European Union, it is said that the European Union was supposedly created to siphon off American finances and receive funds from the United States for defense, and now he is going to effectively stop all of that. We see how complicated the relationship is now between the European Union and the United States. Everything can change very quickly. I truly believe that a lot can change very rapidly. But with this statement, we are noting the trend that exists, and we are talking about what we currently have. At this moment, we have the following. He spoke about Canada and Mexico and mentioned that tariffs would also be imposed on Canada and Mexico in April. In addition, he again recalled that Canada should become the 51st state of the United States, to which the Armenians responded. The Russian ambassador in Ottawa, Canada, stated that the United States wants to obtain rare metals from Canada as well. That's why such provocative statements are being made at the presidential level. In other words, according to the Russian ambassador, they want to obtain rare metals from Canada, as well as from Russia and Ukraine. Trump also mentioned Greenland. As far as I know, there are rare metals there too. Very important metals apart from that are also crucial for the security of the United States and its economy. So everything is falling into place. Trump says that Canada is 95% dependent on the United States, while the United States is only 4% dependent on Canada. He also mentioned that during his presidency, the United States plans to build excellent relations, all of them, accepted Trump's statement with the Russian Federation and China. And that statement, if anyone sees and reads it clearly, they get the impression that now the ally of the United States of America can slowly become Russia, a little different from China, a contradictory statement, unacceptable. Trump made a contradictory statement in general. He has many, and in fact it turns out that NATO countries, Europe and Canada, they are becoming adversarial countries for the United States. At least that impression is being created. But we know that there are many serious agreements, about 80 contracts, that bind the countries of the European Union and Canada to the United States. Their relationship has indeed become very complicated, but I can't imagine that this relationship could experience a deeper crisis than this. In any case, we will see the end of all this, and everything should change. But we have already mentioned this multiple times, and I want to reiterate that if Europe cannot stand on its own feet now, relying on its own strength, it will mainly be about security. then it will be very difficult for Europe. And Trump's statement has some positive aspects. It's positive in the sense that Europe will now have the opportunity to become an independent player, at least in terms of trying to establish itself as a political and military actor in the world and ensure its own security, as well as that of its allied countries. The security of dark countries, of course, includes the security of Armenia, as we see that the European Union is important for Armenia's security component, and if they form a dry security system now, it will be much easier for us to quickly be part of all of that than, for example, let's talk about whether we should also strive to join NATO and become a member of NATO. I don't think we should only talk about NATO, but we need to discuss the European defense system, and we must not miss this opportunity. It's very important that we can also be part of all of this, if of course it all gets established. And finally, one important piece of news regarding Turkey and the Turkish community, which specifically relates to our region, to the Samtskhe region. The Georgian foreign minister was on a visit to Turkey, where he met with Turkey's foreign minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu. I want to highlight one thing from all of this. The Turkish foreign minister stated that they are ready to provide any form of support to Georgia so that the Turkish citizens can return to Georgia. When they talk about returning to Georgia, they are naturally referring to the Samtskhe region. Turkey has repeatedly raised this issue. He always raised this issue, and again, Turkey is actually bringing this issue up and giving great importance to the idea that the Turkish citizens should return to this region. And let me remind you of one more important thing. Now the most important border connecting Armenia with the outside world, Samtskhe, there is also Aras-Tanin. The Samtskhe region of Georgia is an Armenian populated region, densely populated by Armenians, and that program with which both Turkey and Azerbaijan are so actively advancing. Also demographic. It is significant for Turkey and Azerbaijan to have a Turkish population in the Samtskhe region, meaning there should be a Turkish population in northern Armenia. I believe it is very important for us to pay special attention to this issue. Even though I am well aware that the Georgian authorities also have a good understanding of all this. That's all for today, dear compatriots. Again, I remind you to like and subscribe to our channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, good luck and we'll meet again.